Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Hash, where we bring you the latest and most interesting news in the cryptocurrency space. My name is Naomi Brockwell, and today on the show, we have Jen Sanasi, Will Foxley, and Ben Powers. Welcome to the show, guys. And we're going to kick things off by talking about what's going on in El Salvador. So, as we know, the Bitcoin law is set to go into effect very, very soon. And protesters have apparently taken to the streets. People who do not feel that they want Bitcoin to be legal tender. They're worried that perhaps their pensions will be paid in Bitcoin. Perhaps they don't understand the technology. So people have been taken to the streets. And then at the same time, you've got this $150 million Bitcoin trust that has been approved, and things are moving ahead on the Bitcoin ATM front, lots of infrastructure. So two very different stories being told in El Salvador at the moment. Ben, I'm going to throw this to you for your thoughts on what's going on there. Do you think that the people there I'm of two minds, because I love Bitcoin, right? And I want to see Bitcoin accepted. And I don't like the mandate, obviously, but these people don't seem to be protesting against a mandate. They seem to be protesting against Bitcoin. And that makes me sad, because it makes me feel like they don't quite understand what's going on with the US dollar in particular. So throwing this to you for all of your thoughts.
Sure. I mean, I think I think it can be called one and the same at this point, right? Like, there is a mandate. I know that the president has said, no, it's not actually a mandate. You don't actually have to accept this, but in law, that's what it says. And so to be protesting the mandate and Bitcoin are one in itself. And I think that's important here. I mean, this is sort of the logical conclusion of speed racing a bill through the legislature, through parliament, adopting a cryptocurrency, obviously the most prominent one, but as legal tender in a country where I think there's still a lot of educational work to be done, right? I was joking before the show. I was like, all right, tell this to my mom and my dad. If they had to accept Bitcoin, I can't even tell them about Pancake Swap doing something else for the most part in terms of my job. So it's hard to understand, right? And I think that this is kind of a logical conclusion when you don't do the educational work that's necessary, and particularly when it's being pushed through by the government in a lot of different ways. So I think you could see more of this. I think it's a really interesting contrast in terms of, sort of Maxi's crowing about this on Twitter and being really excited about it. And also shows that, we talk about Bitcoin as a transaction method and, a currency for people who are maybe outside of the banking system, banking the unbanked. People in El Salvador don't see it that way. And I think that's reasonable. I think it's okay to push back on this. And I think it shows that there's going to be more fights going forward as this process continues. Will, do you think that these protesters were put up to it? Is this a genuine grassroots movement, or is there something nefarious going on here?
This is the Fiat Masons
by people who might not like Bitcoin. I just want to throw conspiracy theories out there. I want your take, Will.
It's conspiracy theory hour.
No, I just got to note, Ben's in the office today, and I love the background. Looking great.
Yeah.
I can confirm that they have put baby in the corner. I do not get the desk. I just got a corner of the studio.
Yikes.
Oh, that's not fair. Maybe by the end of the week.
Let's fix that.
We'll see if I can.
You have to prove yourself.
There's a few ways to look at this. I think the rational view is, yes, there's a problem with this legislation if you're forcing people to accept some sort of currency, and that currency is very new. It is very volatile. That's just an aspect of it. And people are worried. This is their life savings. They have a right to be upset and worried. I am wondering to what size and scale this has become an issue in El Salvador. It said hundreds of protesters have marched the streets. So obviously these people have a decent amount of conviction to go out there and be protesting against this bill. And it is not a great look for the Bitcoin ecosystem just to be dealing with legislation that forces it through like this. And that this is the consequence of that, where people are frustrated. They're not getting their answer or their questions answered. Some of the things they raised, though, I'm curious about. They said that they were worried about their pensions being paid in Bitcoin. I don't really know of how that was incorporated into this payments bill. Maybe someone on this panel can clear that up for me. I mean, I just want to say too, just briefly, there's also it's not, when people take to the streets, it's at risk to themselves, right? Even in the US, right? You come into contact with law enforcement, you come into contact with other people. I don't think it's fair to ask who's sponsoring these individuals or something like that. They're choosing and they're going out and they are protesting, and that comes at risk to themselves. And I just think that's important to note. And Will, maybe to your point, we could talk about the infrastructure bill that's currently being worked on in the US and ask if everybody understands every part of that.
And I think that's a fair parallel in the sense that like legislation is complicated and weird and hard and can easily be misconstrued in a number of ways. But Naomi, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I cut off Jen too, so I'll throw to you first, Jen.
Well, I think it's not hard to see how people may be misunderstanding the bill if that's the case. I mean, we saw the president launch a series of tweets that go against what's written in the bill, and the words in the bill still haven't changed. And if you look at minimum wage in El Salvador, it ranges from $243 to $365 a month, depending on the sector. So now you think about people who are making this amount of money, they're supporting their family, the education about the technology, about Bitcoin isn't there to support this law that seems to have been pushed through almost overnight. And so it's no surprise to see why people are concerned. I think when we hear about Bitcoin in the mainstream media, we hear about the extreme volatility, we hear about climate concerns, and we hear about regulatory concerns. So for people to be putting their earnings into Bitcoin, and I know that's not exactly what the bill is saying, but to be accepting Bitcoin as payment can be scary if you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot to unpack here. I think that they probably don't understand the risks to the US dollar, which is why they kind of had this one-sided idea of Bitcoin is bad and US dollar has only upside. Perhaps if they understood all of the things that the central bank was doing at the moment to undermine the value of the US dollar, they might be more interested in parking some of their savings into something like Bitcoin. But yeah, I do think this whole thing was undermined, as we've already talked about, by the mandate, by the confusion as to what's actually law and what's actually just a tweet, by understanding what's actually a legal requirement. It's very confusing, and it could have been solved by, just uniting the crypto community around this and taking out that mandate. But let's keep an eye on what's going on there. And in the meantime, Will, I'm going to throw to you for some news from FTX. What's going on there?
That's right. FTX US has purchased crypto derivative firm Ledgerx in a move that could have a lot of different crypto products come to market for FTX US, including futures, swaps, puts, calls, and other financial derivatives. So Ledgerx is it's a pretty decently known name in the crypto ecosystem. There was no price disclosed for the purchase, but this does really open up FTX US to the ability to service the retail market in the US in a way that it has not been able to so far. Of course, FTX US is a subsidiary of FTX, which lists any and every coin and has become just a dominant player in the cryptocurrency space globally. But the US remains very walled off from the rest of the cryptocurrency ecosystem due to US securities laws. And FTX US was created a few years ago to be able to bring a few products to market in the US that comply with US regulations, including purchase of spot Bitcoin and Ether. And now with this purchase of this crypto derivative firm, Ledgerx, they're able to offer a few more crypto derivatives that retail players can get into the game with. Pretty interesting move by them. Sam Bankman-Fried this morning called it one of the largest acquisitions that they've done recently. They've been on a spur of acquisitions as well, and a bunch of naming rights, such as with the Miami Heat's basketball arena down in Miami. So I'm going to throw this first to Jen. What's your thought on it? Just another Sam Bankman-Fried announcement, or something bigger here in the water?
Well, well, probably there is something bigger, but I just think like FTX is on a tear, and they just keep hitting it with like their branding decisions and their strategic decisions. It was interesting to me to see this acquisition because it came with all of these licenses. So it feels like they just keep sidestepping regulators and they keep winning. And yesterday we spoke about SBF being able to really envision and see the future from a crypto context. And I think this just shows that he understands the space, he understands where it's going, and he's able to put one foot in front of the other to take the smaller steps to actually get us all there. I think that's where a lot of these businesses fail, like putting one step in front of the other to get to that bigger picture. But I'll throw it back to you, Will.
SBF can walk. Got it.
Yeah, he can walk well in a straight line towards the finish.
Can he strut though?
Yeah, no, I think like you brought up two really awesome points. One is SBF just continues to dominate the game. Don't know how he keeps making like the most prescient moves every single time. Also, it's interesting that in the US you can just buy the regulatory goods and services that you need just by acquiring someone else. Like, I wouldn't have thought that, but you can do that, and that's been a thing we've seen kind of over the years, that you can just kind of like purchase someone, and like, of course, there's follow-ups on those regulatory requirements. Like, FTX US isn't just getting a bypass by having Ledgerx. Like, Ledgerx is going to work within as a subsidiary, but it is interesting that FTX US gets access to those markets that way. But Naomi, you're seeing some skepticism to my initial points. Did I say something wrong?
Skepticism. I mean, it's just remarkable. It seems like you're suggesting that a lot of our regulatory framework is based on paying the right people, greasing the right palms, and has very little to do with, protecting consumers, and a lot to do with just making sure that they get their money and you pay the right people. That's shocking to me. Quite shocking, Will. Let's discuss that in another episode sometime. But one thing I will say about FTX that's kind of interesting is, like, so they're founded in 2019. By 2019, I would have looked at the exchange landscape and I would have said, okay, this is saturated. All the people who are, providing the shovels for this gold rush, they're already here and they're already building up. But then, FTX comes along and is like, oh, we're founding an exchange now in 2019, which seems so late in the game, and they've just like risen to such incredible prominence. So it just goes to show you that it's very difficult to kind of predict how these companies are going to do and what things are needed in the space, because FTX is very popular. They seem to be making a lot of really good moves that are attracting customers. So it's just interesting to watch that and to maybe second guess your presumptions about this space. If we think that an area is saturated or we've already got all the players, then they're only the players that are ever going to be there. It just doesn't seem to be the case. But I'll throw it to you, Jen, for next story. Some rare Pepe.
Yeah, well, speaking of Pepe. Yeah, I know you want to say Rare Pepe. So Rare Pepe is an NFT that sold this week, but we're going to talk about another NFT story first, and we'll come back to that. So we've spoken a lot about institutional interest in NFTs this week, and now VC firm 3 Arrows Capital is launching a dedicated NFT fund called Starry Night Capital. So pseudonymous NFT collector Vincent Van Dough. This is what I love about the crypto space. Like, you can be named Vincent Van Dough. Tweeted that he's teamed up with the fund and said, our thesis is simple. We believe the best way to gain exposure to the cultural paradigm shift being ushered in by NFTs is owning top pieces from the most desired sets. So similar to what Visa was saying, I know Budweiser is also getting into the NFT space. We had a little debate on the show on if they were an institution, and I think we all agreed that, Will, yes, they are. So, Will, I'm going to kick this to you first. What do you think of the Starry Night Fund?
Everyone's a legendary investor. Everyone's an institution. It's just makes no sense. I don't have any comments on that specifically, I guess. Let's just move away from that whole discussion. 3 Arrows Capital getting into the NFT game. They've been in it for a while, so this is nothing new, and they are just so good at what they do. Like, frustratingly good. They're an interesting firm. Specifically, like Suzu there is the head trader, and they make some pretty prescient moves as well. They're very dominant in the DeFi space beforehand. And I think that you kind of see they're profit maximalists. They're not about anything else in my mind's eye. That is an opinion, but I think it's just they kind of rotate and cycle out of every crypto asset as it becomes popular. And they do it in a very effective way. If you look at the leaderboard, for example, in Bitfinex, they're right up there in the top for Bitcoin trading, also in the DeFi game. And now they're kind of cementing their position as a top NFT dog with this fund. So it's not surprising to me, but it does show you that cryptocurrency, the landscape itself, is kind of turning into similar wavelengths that we see with traditional finance, where the top players kind of group together and then they dominate the industry. So that's my takeaway from it. But I'm going to throw it down to Ben on your thoughts for the story.
Yeah, a couple different thoughts. Vincent Van Dough reminded me of a really funny graffiti tag artist in my neighborhood called Blob Dylan, which is also just fantastic. I love the plays on words and all the senses of it. And two, I think that, it's really interesting when we're seeing institutional VCs get into this, right? Like, because the purpose of this is not to like acquire great art. Let's be real. The purpose of this is to buy and then flip it. And I think that's really important to keep remembering. Like, people talk about all the appreciation for NFTs and like, this is a really interesting idea. And we talked on this show about a couple different unique iterations of NFTs, but for the most part, people are just buying to flip. And, in that case, sure. Like, Will, to your point, like if they're chasing profits, like that's the way to do this. This market is still frothy as all heck. And, we're going to continue to see it for the near future, at least. I thought it was dead. I thought it would die. I was wrong. On the other hand, too, I am thinking now about and remembering yesterday about a Reddit post on Am I the Asshole about somebody proposing to his fiance or his girlfriend with an NFT and it going horribly, horribly wrong and her crying.
I love that you found an
no.
opportunity to bring this in.
I mean, I've been thinking about it a little too much recently because I'm just like, why, my man, why? So anyway, listeners, don't do that. But, 3 Arrows Capital,
totally okay.
maybe you can do it. Who knows?
Or find yourself a woman who appreciates the decentralized nature of new NFT art.
Or
there you go.
maybe
You saved yourself. Maybe you dodged a bullet there, boy. I think that the NFT world, I mean, it's so fascinating to watch all of this. I love the play on words, Vincent Van Gogh. You've got Starry Nightcap, like all of this stuff. And then you've got NFTs that kind of troll people as well. Like it really is this great encapsulation, I guess, of this meme culture that we've developed on the internet that people just love. And it's something that older generations don't really understand. It's people who haven't grown up with the internet don't really understand. It's this new culture that's formed. And I love watching all of this play out. I think it's wonderful. But Jen, I'll throw to you.
I actually have a question for you, Naomi. Now that we're seeing all this institutional interest in NFTs, and we're starting to talk about NFTs as an asset class, do you think the SEC and the CFTC are coming for NFTs?
I think that they are going to be battling it out between the two of them to decide who gets to have jurisdiction over this, because it is going to be an area that, I mean, there's a lot of money in this. And so both of these governmental departments are going to want control over it. So I think, I mean, obviously, I don't think either of them should. And if we can get to a decentralized enough place, perhaps they can't even exercise that power. But I do think that there is going to be a battle for ground between those two areas of the government. But let's move on. And just before we do, I just want to say, Will, the definition of an institution. So, like significant practice, relationship, or organization in a society or culture. I would say Budweiser, has a significant place in society and culture, especially American culture. And on that note, with that final word that I just claimed, I'm going to go to Ben.
Just wondering if
all right, good to know, because you're going to get, I mean, Budweiser army is worse than any of the crypto armies.
Will's a man of the people, exactly. But no, I'm going to take us on the next story. And DAO builder Syndicate has raised $20 million from Alex Ohanian, A16Z, and Snoop Dogg, amongst a number of others. And I think this is interesting for a number of reasons. But Syndicate is a community investment system that simplifies the creation of decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, from a variety of individuals, and lets people kind of spin up DAOs on their own accord in community-based investment funds. So this to me is cool because DAOs are really interesting. And if you give people kind of a template for creating them, then I think we're going to see it happen a lot more. Additionally, Alex Ohanian, obviously founder of Reddit, and A16Z and Snoop Dogg getting in on this is interesting because, sort of unlike traditional VC funding where VCs fund and then they want their fingers in the pie and able to control that pie and kind of morph it however they want, DAOs don't let you do that. DAOs really are like, you have a voting system and whatever the DAO votes on is where funding or investment or the decision-making process or rulemaking goes. So Jen, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this initially.
Well, first I was like A16Z, then Alexis Ohanian, and then Snoop Dogg. And I was like,
yeah, dude, the Suicide Squad.
Interesting group. I mean, I think this is really cool. I honestly, when I read this story, I thought about Snoop Dogg doing those VOs to Planet Earth. And I thought, how great would it be if Snoop Dogg released video content explaining things like DAOs? I think that could be a really great thing for education in the space. I mean, I would watch them all.
Get him to El Salvador
everyone
right now.
It's Snoop up in here. Real quick, two thoughts.
Yeah.
First, Syndicate has like the most interesting Twitter account. They only tweet in Morse code, so go look them up.
No, they don't. What?
Yeah, dots and dashes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Can we get the Twitter
Who is
account?
their
on the
social
screen?
media manager? What is this? I have
Start
so
your
many
Tuesday
questions
off.
now.
Yeah, I know. Also interesting to see A16Z involved with this. Well, really not interesting in the sense that they're always on top of these new kind of things. Like they're always the first ticket in the door, especially for new Ethereum projects. So it's not surprising in any sense, but it does give me like some aspirations that this project is headed somewhere like in a generally right direction, even though we do see like celebrities tagged along with this as well. Like I don't know how much Snoop Dogg has looked into the metaverse outside of smoking weed, so I'm not really sure about that.
I mean, it
endorsement,
feels like the two of those
but
things go hand in hand.
I agree,
they
Jen.
could. Ben, I'll give it
I
back
just
to
want
you.
to, yeah, and I just want to call out a couple of things about Syndicate that I thought were interesting. So Syndicate this is a quote from the article itself, but Syndicate provides communities with tools to easily spin up decentralized investment vehicles, and thus far has seen the creation of DAOs such as Kamarabi, I butchered that one, a collective that invests only in exceptional female and non-binary crypto founders, and Audacity as well, which invests in Black and African founders in emerging overlooked markets, as well as Fiat Lux, which is funding scientific research. So I think that, to me, what's also interesting here is just these sort of ways that Syndicate is kind of tackling, communities that aren't traditionally in crypto. I think it's very obvious that, sort of akin to tech, like crypto is a lot of it is white and male. And so I think that investing in these sorts of groups is really important as well. Maybe, Will, to your point, another quote as a kicker of this story said, spinning up an investment fund could be as easy as like firing off a tweet. Though the quote person there obviously said, you should not do that actually, though. Do not spin an investment fund up as if it were a tweet. Those things are not the same. But Naomi, I'll toss to you.
I mean, I love DAOs. I think that they are awesome. They are the next step for society. They are a way of decentralizing trust. They are a way of giving power back to individuals rather than having, central focal points that can be targeted by powerful people or powerful groups, powerful states. And so absolutely, this is the direction we're moving in society. I love that they're kind of following this, that all of these investors are seeing this as the next step and recognizing that. DAOs, they are a way of locking up funds on a blockchain, allowing a group of people to vote, distribute all of the voting power to them. It's just such a fascinating thing. When this first started with the DAO on Ethereum, everyone was like, what does this even do? Like, what is this going to be used for? And then it's hacked and everyone's like, DAOs are dumb. And then since then, you've just had iteration after iteration after iteration. You have companies decentralizing, like Shapeshift becoming a DAO instead of actually being a company anymore. They have really shown us the way in terms of what benefits this could have, because you have the government targeting them. They're offering this product that they think consumers want and consumers did want. And then the government comes in and says, like, we're going to protect consumers. You can't do that anymore. You have to abide by our rules. They do that. They lose 90% of their business. They're like, what are we even doing? People want this stuff. How do we get it to them? So then they're like, okay, we'll just decentralize. We will take us out of the equation. We are the part of this that can be leveraged. We can be targeted. We can be coerced. We could be forced to do things. And so they said, well, let's just not exist. We want this thing to the product that we're offering to exist so much. Let's just take us out of the equation and just offer the product. How do we do that? Well, let's just decentralize everything. Let's take that focal company out of the picture. And more people are going to be going down this route. I mean, you have Binance kind of, speculating in that area with Binance Smart Chain. Obviously, it's a very centralized iteration. But the more that governments around the world keep cracking down on them, I wonder whether they're going to go further down this decentralized DAO route. I think other companies are going to go the same route, especially when you have Gensler saying, we're going to target all the DeFi stuff. Don't think that you're immune just because you're DeFi. I think that it's going to force people to become ever more actually decentralized. And so I love that, because right now we have all these bureaucrats. A lot of them aren't even elected into the office. A lot of them, we don't even have a say over who gets into office. For example, like people at the central bank, they're not even elected. They're just put into place. And so you have all of these power structures that control our lives. People don't get a say, and we just kind of take it as normal and we just go along with it. And they're, forcing our lives in a direction that perhaps we don't want them to go in. And now decentralized technology and things like DAOs are allowing us to break free of that. And that is so exciting to me. I can't even overstate how cool that is, just to see this paradigm shift happening before our eyes. So I think stuff like this is super cool. I want to see more companies explore DAO models. I want to see it become easier and easier for companies to do this. And I just want to see that power get redistributed back into the hands of the people and the citizens of countries.
Yeah, Naomi, when you were talking about DAO getting hacked and then people saying DAOs are dumb, I was like, yo, get in line. Like everything else got hacked too. So just calm down. Will, but you got some final thoughts for us?
No, just preaching it back to Naomi. That was great.
Okay, just sipping that water.
We'll high five.
Just excitement. Just total excitement.
Total excitement. Yeah, no, this is the future, guys. Hold on, because I think the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years, they're going to look completely different to the previous years. And it's going to be really exciting to watch that. And we're front row. We are here in the crypto space and we're on the Hash. You're bringing you the news, letting you know what's going on in the space, what to keep your eye on. But keep an eye on it because this space is exciting. But stick around if you want to know more about what's going on in Bitcoin and crypto and all those things. 3 p.m. all about Bitcoin on CoinDesk TV. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., we're talking about Bitcoin again, and then we're back at the Hash at 12 with the crew. So until then, we will let you go enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Will, Ben, Jen, catch you later. See you tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.
See you later.